Welcome back to part 2 of what's fun and strong in Spiritforged. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, don't worry, you can just go watch it after this. We're going through the remaining 6 legends in Spiritforged, how they play, how they've performed across the 4 Chinese regional opens, and my personal opinion of how fun and strong they are from C tier to S tier. Note that the deck lists for the top ranking performances are in the description, along with timestamps if you want to skip to a specific legend. Also, I'll be referring to domains by their colour name rather than their formal name for ease of new player understanding. Recapping the stats again, during the Chinese regional opens, a field of about 500 players are culled from day 1 down to 64 players on day 2. That means that just under 1 in 10 players are getting eliminated. So the conversion percentage denotes what percentage of the Legends players made it to day 2, so about 13% will be above rate.
Ionia still stands!
Irelia is in the purple-green domain pairing along with Yasuo. Her legend provides a power and energy-intensive way of readying units and moving around the board. The competitive decks almost universally run Irelia Fervent, which has Deflect for protection and can become enormous throughout the course of a turn, and also has arguably the best over number art in the game. Her signature spell Defiant Dance is an obscenely busted card, providing a 4-might swing at reaction speed which can be spread across 2 different units. Importantly, it chooses a target which Irelia's legend is themed around. Irelia's domain pairing provides access to efficient combat tricks as well as control elements like counterspells in green, and even more movement and control in purple. This pairing also boasts some of the best card draw in the game. Irelia tends to be light in units in general, and gives up the early game to set up protection or the Siren, or just deny your opponent points. Using spells inefficiently isn't a huge worry for Irelia with the amount of card draw she will enjoy throughout the game. It'll then look to set up Irelia Fervent or Draven Audacious, and in the mid to late game start zipping around the battlefield and mopping up. Your legend ability coupled with your movement spells will make moving wherever you want absolutely trivial. As a result, Silicon Herd is a pretty busted card, and your opponents will have to prioritise removing her for fear of you drawing half your deck. Competitive decks seem to have settled on Obelisk of Power, Sunken Temple, and the Dreaming Tree. Battlefields focused around card draw or getting to the late game. I'll also take a moment to note that while Irelia is going to be fun, she can also be a bit of a mental heavy deck. You'll need to be constantly planning how much might your Irelia will gain, where and how often your units can move, how much energy, etc, etc. And that's going to take a lot of focus and mental energy. So if your day tends to be pretty busy and you're going to Nexus Nights tired, Irelia might be a rough choice. Irelia is a popular deck, putting some excellent performances both in terms of conversion to day 2 and rankings overall. She's a high skill ceiling legend, and I wonder, as players continue to become more proficient with her, if she'll one day break the semi-final curse and actually make it to top spot. So no bias here, Irelia seems really fun and will be my preferred legend to run in the Spiritforged season. Irelia is themed around moving her units and will chew through power to do so. She's a high skill ceiling legend with a fairly high barrier to entry, but games with her will feel like you've got insane maneuverability and access to all the answers. Unfortunately, due to her popularity, Defiant Dance is quite an expensive card and universally run as a 3 of. Despite this, a single copy of Irelia Fervent is the only other expensive card in the deck, so overall Irelia falls into the middle of the range in terms of budget.
Tell the people what you have seen today!
Azir is in the green-yellow domain pairing along with Leona. His legend provides a clear-cut game plan and a pathway to value, making 2 might tokens for 1 energy, which is an insanely good rate. And if that wasn't enough, it also comes with a very relevant keyword Weapon Master. Activation of his legend is contingent on having played an equipment card this turn, which is a very low bar to clear. This also covers one of the weaknesses of equipment in general, which is needing a unit to attach it to in order for it to do anything. Decks typically run Azir Sovereign as its chosen champion, which is an extremely powerful way of pushing a battlefield even with an out of position or exhausted token army. His signature spell Arise is expensive, but has proven to be very powerful and is often run as a 3 of. Azir's domains offer counterspells and combat tricks in green, and efficient kill spells in yellow. Because of how efficient his legend is at producing strong units, most decks run few if any units in the main deck. A couple of Lonely Poros is often all that's featured in the unit column of deck lists. As early as turn 1, you can put 3 might on the board with Doran's Shield, and you'll essentially be looking to play at least 1 unit onto the board every single turn and eventually swarm the opponent with your suited up Sand Soldiers. Many of the equipment that you run also provide additional value, such as Eye of the Herald and Sacred Shears. After you start applying pressure in the early game, you can leverage that into your control and removal package. and since your units are so cheap and disposable, you can use Death Grip and Hidden Blade for value as well when needed. Battlefields take advantage of your token swarm, with just stranding units at Valmor's Lair, or flooding Trifarian Warcamp. And Ornn's Forge is particularly good in Azir, since you can get onto the Forge fast in the early game and then take advantage of the discounts immediately. Azir has been a bit of a sleeper throughout the competitive season and has had a breakout performance at Nanjing. That deck had some notable differences with other Azirs that have performed well in previous tournaments. It ran Sacred Cheers, which provides some card advantage, and Charm for some utility and removal. With this recent performance, I expect Azir's stock to rise a little bit, and has, I think, a lot of potential for the Spiritforged season. So overall, Azir seems like a heap of fun, and a bit of a different take to the unitless style of play. This playstyle differs hugely to Victor's unitless strategy, however, as Azir actually produces some decently large units that can win combats, and isn't reliant on any given finisher. Azir Sovereign is a game-ending shotgun in the back pocket, and will be a very powerful finisher at 6 points. The play pattern of sending all of your tokens into one battlefield, then using Azir Sovereign to move them all into the next battlefield and win will be very common. Azir is another deck that's usually running 3 of his signature spell, as well as the epic version of his champion in the Chosen Champion slot. So how expensive the deck will be depends on how well it's performing at tournaments. Regardless, he'll likely be a mid to low budget deck that will be perfectly functional without the full suite of 3 Arise.
Time for a true display of skill.
Ezreal is in the purple-blue domain pairing along with PEEPO. His legend provides card draw as a reward for targeting things multiple times on your opponent's board. This can be with spells or with unit abilities. This theoretically provides a few potential build pathways, though currently in the competitive meta, the popular Ezreal deck is already quite refined. Ezreal Prodigy is universally run as a chosen champion, as his combo with Cold Shot is absolutely bonkers. Ezreal's signature spell Arcane Shift is typically only run as a one-of, though combined with Thousand Tail Watcher and Mind Splitter is very strong. Ezreal's domain pairing offers strong top-end units with upside, premium card draw and selection, and 2 crazy mass removal spells with Downwell and Unchecked Power. It also has the damage-based removal of blue and the movement mechanics of purple. The deck aims to get a card refund for playing spells that target, and leveraging card advantage to manage your opponent's board. The Ezreal deck tends to be fairly unit light, favouring a small mech package and Ezreal Prodigy as its early turn plays. The deck is quite hungry for purple power, so Seal of Discord is commonly featured as a 3-of, as is Cull for the gold tokens. In the mid game, it's looking to manage the board using spells, and in the late game drop units like Thousand Tail Watcher and Mind Splitter. The sideboard is where Ezreal decks get even more interesting. Ornn's Forge God is typically run in the sideboard to bring against decks that can't deal with it, for example Kai'Sa, and Time Warp is often seen either in the main deck or the sideboard as a one-of. As mentioned, the deck runs a variable amount of mass removal with Downwell and Unchecked Power to round off its control-focused game plan. Battlefields like Voidgate are used to bolster spells like Bellows Breath, and Hall of Legends behaves like additional card draw for 1 energy when conquering. In terms of performance, Ezreal's had quite a rollercoaster ride so far in the competitive scene. A modestly popular and quite strong legend, posting incredible results in Chengdu and Dalian, and decent results in Fuzhou and Nanjing. Ezreal seems generally fairly underrated, and hopefully these performances will bolster his play numbers a bit in the future. Overall, Ezreal is a control deck that draws an insane number of cards. Just having Ezreal Prodigy in the Chosen Champion zone and Cold Shot available in your deck is so insanely strong. The deck is unit light, so your early game is often spent setting up ways to produce purple power to use for card draw, and in the late game to play your big threats or mass removal. Ezreal has some good potential to be strong in the competitive meta, and has gotten very close to tournament wins a couple of times now. Unfortunately, if you want to play Ezreal, you'll need to whip out the credit card. The deck runs 2 to 3 copies of Ezreal Prodigy, one of the most expensive epics in the game at the moment, 3 Seal of Discord, and variable amounts of Time Warps, Unmatched Powers, and Arcane Shifts.
Get the job done!
Renata is in the yellow-blue domain pairing along with Lux and Victor. Her legend provides 2 abilities, one generating gold tokens for holding, the other allowing you to generate energy with those tokens once you hit 5 points. Or 6 if you're playing against an Aspirant's Climb. Decks have played both Renata Glask Industrialist and Mastermind in the Chosen Champion slot, though the best performing decks are running Mastermind. Her signature spell Hostile Takeover is an insanely strong spell, and one of my favourite designs in the set. It is typically run as a 2 to 3 of in her lists. Her domain pairing provides the strong removal suite of yellow and the powerful and expensive top end of blue, including Time Warp and Thousand Tail Watcher. Renata is looking to contest the early game in order to start generating gold and then get to 5 points, and then after that is looking to play gigantic bombs in the late game. 2 drops are very premium in this deck, with Honest Broker and Plundering Poro both being on rate in terms of might and also generating tokens. Once your early game is established, you'll look to hold with its efficient spell package. The best performing decks in Nanjing were running about 2 to 3 Time Warp, as well as copies of Unchecked Power and Trove Golem, so a pretty fun and exciting top end. Echo Recurrent is also a really cool addition to the deck, and can accelerate you to an early Time Warp as well. Once the deck generates enough gold tokens, Forge God becomes a gigantic monster which very few decks have the ability to deal with efficiently. Decks look like they've experimented with Arena's Greatest to race to the 5-point threshold, though that seems like a pretty risky exercise and seems like decks are moving away from that now. Since most successful Renata decks look to fight for the early game holds, battlefields like Grove of the Godwillow and Trifarian Warcamp probably align better with that objective. Oh boy. Yeah, Renata's both unpopular and is having a rough time performance-wise as well. Despite this, the deck that did the best so far, which was in Nanjing, had some changes to the deck composition compared with her predecessors. Hopefully this is a good sign of better days to come for Renata, and I pray for my friend's sake that Renata has a breakout performance sometime soon. Overall, Renata unfortunately suffers from a few problems. Her legend ability requires her to hold, and she's currently living in a meta where Draven wants you to put juicy small units at battlefield so he can just win the combats. She also needs you to get to 5 points to take full advantage of her legend ability, so that suggests she would want to enact a more aggressive early game push and hold strategy. Unfortunately, her payoff facilitates playing bombs and is usually a bit discordant from her main strategy. Hybrid style strategies often suffer in TCGs, but you can never count out a brew cropping up that just nails the ratios and starts posting results. Because playing bombs is the payoff, the deck will also be quite expensive. Cards like Time Warp will balloon out your deck's budget, but are pretty much essential for your deck to do any unfair stuff.
All that glitters is mine.
Sivir's in the orange-purple domain pairing along with Misfortune. Her legend provides gold tokens when you recycle runes, essentially discounting all power costs in your deck. She also readies when one or more of your enemy units die, so that gives her an additional theme of timing her combat and removal with recycling. Her legend is quite open, and so you have lots of choices in terms of how to brew with her, which is reflected in some interesting variation in competitive builds so far. Most decks are running Sivir Mercenary as a chosen champion, which acts as a constant threat to battlefields with her Accelerate, and provides additional value on subsequent turns with its ganking ability. Her signature spell On the Hunt is a power intensive way to ready all your units, and readying units is quite strong in general. Unfortunately, the narrow use of the spell along with its steep power cost makes it only a one-of in any deck that runs it. As already mentioned, purple provides a variety of powerful tools, including movement and card draw, and orange offers efficient interaction and hand disruption as well. There are 2 distinct archetypes that are running Sivir at the moment. A Dazzling Aurora build, with the only units in the deck being Deadbloom Predator and Mind Splitter, and a deck more focused around the card draw combo of Ezreal Prodigy, Cold Shot, Fizz, which plays Rasa as a cheap mid to late game unit. The latter was played by Randy to 4th place in Dalian, though honestly, he deserved to finish higher, but I won't get into that in this video. Card selection is of course very strong, and the purple movement and control mechanics combined with getting Rasa out for very cheap makes the pressure this deck applies in the mid to late game very significant. The Dazzling Aurora variant is really interesting. You'd think that running only 5 to 6 units would be a little bit risky, but with the addition of Spiritforged to Aurora, this has given the archetype last rites, a way of both recurring units from trash and also recycling them into your deck so you can get them with Aurora again. Honestly, this boon to the archetype has given it new legs and allowed it to continue to compete in the current metagame. Performance is all over the place. Of the top 4 finishers across the regional opens, only one of the decks was running the non-Aurora variant, which was the 4th place finish in Dalian. More data is needed of course before we say which build is superior to the other, and I'm looking forward to see which Sivir build has the most staying power in the Western meta. Overall, Sivir is a legend with 2 distinct build paths, a purple heavy deck with Ezreal and Cold Shot, and a Dazzling Aurora deck. It is really nice to see Dazzling Aurora as an archetype holding its own despite the speculation that it's dead due to the massive amount of efficient gear hate in Spiritforged. I think it's really fun to cycle through the same powerful effect multiple times with Last Rites and Aurora, though being on the receiving end of the third Mind Splitter trigger of the game does get pretty old pretty fast. I personally think that the purple variant of the deck will be the one to have the long-term staying power, and the version that will actually make it to the Western meta, but we'll see. Both variants of the deck are going to be very expensive, with the purple heavy deck running 3 Ezreal Prodigy, 3 Seal of Discord, and the Aurora deck running 3 Aurora, 2 Deadbloom Predators, and 2 to 3 Last Rites.
Strike quickly, strike deftly.
Fiora is in the orange-yellow domain pairing along with my boy Set. Also, it's telling in my initial draft of this script I forgot Garen even existed, but anyway, he's here too. Her legend rewards you for your unit becoming mighty by channeling a rune. This helps to mitigate one of the issues that orange-yellow has, which is recycling too many runes. This legend ability synergizes with cards already present in the domain pairing, as applying a buff to a 4-might unit is a really easy way for it to become mighty. Decks will often run either Fiora Victorious or Fiora Worthy as its chosen champion. Fiora Victorious provides a strong unit with keyword soup once she's mighty, whereas Fiora Worthy makes units ready once they become mighty. Her signature spell Riposte is incredible. It's both a counterspell and a buff, and it synergizes with Fiora's legend ability, so you pretty much instantly get a power back. But most importantly, it offers orange-yellow a counterspell, something that the domain pairing doesn't normally have access to. This is such a cool example of signature spells offering something new to a domain pairing that breaks the normal identity of those colors. On that note, orange has excellent early game units and efficient, though power intensive interaction, and yellow gets access to kill spells. Fiora is yet another Spiritforged legend that has 2 build paths, though not as distinctly different from each other as previous legends. One build is focused on early and mid game pressure, utilizing units like Set Brawler and equipment to easily activate her legend. The other is very similar, only it plays less units, more top end units, and 3 copies of Baited Hook. Both versions of the deck are doing quite well, as you'll soon see, so you do wonder if it's more the legend itself along with her early and mid game plays, rather than whether or not they're playing Baited Hook. Across all the decks however, Pit Rookie, Unsung Hero, and First Mate provide consistent early game presence and utility. Set Brawler and BF Sword are also consistently seen to round off the early and mid game pressure. Interaction Suite is the usual lineup of Punch First, Hidden Blade and Challenge, absolute staples and nightmares to play around. Fiora runs into the same issues as Set and Garen of drawing cards, so battlefields are usually run in service of patching this weakness. Monastery of Hirana, Sunken Temple and the Dreaming Tree are common, but Trifarian War Camp is also a really strong battlefield as it can help make your units mighty with minimal effort. Amazing performances so far, and she's getting so agonizingly close to a victory. Fairly popular champion as well, boasting about a 5 to 8% representation. I think at this stage people know Fiora is fairly strong, so I wouldn't be surprised to see more of her moving into the Western meta. Again, no biases here. Fiora looks like a really fun champion that seamlessly slots into the strategy yellow-orange is already trying to do. She's an aggressive deck with a really good card quality, and her legend ability offsets some of the power-hungry nature of the orange-yellow domain pairing. Her signature spell Riposte offers the domain pairing something brand new, and is only let down by the fact that your unit will have to think about it when playing spells into you. Baited Hook as an archetype is also given new life, and proving to be quite powerful and a really fun playstyle to boot. The Baited Hook variant is looking to be fairly expensive, though the epics run in orange-yellow are a bit underrated and undervalued at the moment. I don't think it will be this way for long though, as if she becomes a popular champion in the West, her prices will tend to climb. One great thing that she's got going for her is that her signature spell is included in her champion deck, so it's unlikely to ever hit the $85 highs that Showstopper did. And that's all for today. I hope this was helpful or an interesting watch otherwise. Subscribe if you would like to see more Riftbound stuff, and let me know in the comments what you're planning to build in Spiritforged. I'll catch you in the next one.